Hashtag 为什么这个 YouTube 爆看视频脚本如此受欢迎 Hashtag 多角度分析 One 信号强烈情感开场有事实性对比信号已紧张的法庭判决瞬间开始立即创造悬念和情感冲突抓住观众注意2信号若是这对抗呈现着的个信号普通单亲妈妈对抗富有经营过后形成鲜明的权利不平等引发观众争议感3信号孩子视角的情感力量信号通过60小男孩的纯真视角传递情感创造出令人难忘的高潮时刻打动观众心弦4信号外主题的普遍共鸣信号目的情感流大的刻画开业文化背景触发观众对家庭和亲情的共鸣5信号第一人称亲密事实信号第一人称视角建立与观众的亲密关系增强真实感和读感6信号完整事实弧线信号从危机开始到危机过去冲突升级情感高潮最后达到满意结局接着把控竞争7信号社会议题的探讨信号探讨健康权家庭结构情感健康等社会议题增加故事深度和现实意义8信号希望有坚韧的主题信号传递积极向上的价值观鼓励观众面对生活中的挑战 Hashtag 感谢脚本The magistrate fixed his gaze directly on me and announced, "We're prepared to deliver our verdict." My entire world seemed to stop spinning. Breathing became impossible. My fingernails dug so deeply into the wooden table that I feared they might splinter. This was the moment I dreaded, the moment I might forever lose my child. Then, unexpectedly, my 6-year-old Theo rose from his seat in the gallery. He approached the center of the courtroom, clutching a wrinkled sheet of paper he had carefully tucked into his superhero backpack earlier that morning. His voice was soft, yet unmistakably clear. "Your Honor," he began, "I need to share something." The courtroom fell into complete stillness. Not a whisper, not a movement. Every person turned toward this small figure in his oversized blue sweater, standing before a judge, gripping his letter with both hands as if it were his lifeline. I remained paralyzed, unable to speak or move, just watching him with my heart hammering painfully against my ribs. What followed transformed everything. I'm Alexandra Reed, 33, a freelance illustrator and mother to my wonderful Theo. At 6 years old, he adores prehistoric creatures, insists on peanut butter with practically everything, and requires a nightlight when sleeping. He inherited my expressive eyes and his father's contemplative nature. Before our lives unraveled, we lived simply but contentedly. Not without challenges, but peacefully. We occupied a modest 2-bedroom cottage on the town's perimeter. The monthly payments were reasonable, and the yard provided just enough space for a sandbox and second-hand swings. Nothing extravagant, but it was home. Michael, my spouse and Theo's father, died in a vehicular collision 2 years ago. It happened during a stormy evening. I still recall preparing dinner when the phone rang. Stir-fried vegetables. I've never cooked that dish since. Initially, I questioned whether I could survive without him. We'd been partners since university. He represented safety and security in my life. His death stole not only my companion, but our shared dreams for tomorrow. Yet Theo became my salvation. The weeks following Michael's passing blurred together. Despite overwhelming grief and exhaustion, I remained present for my son. Each morning meant preparing his lunchbox, accompanying him to kindergarten with a manufactured smile, then returning home to release my anguish in private. He never witnessed my breakdowns. I ensured that. He required strength, so I embodied it. Our bond deepened significantly. Evenings found Theo nestled beside me beneath his favorite blanket, whispering consolations, "Don't worry, Mommy. I'm right here." Though typically reserved, his presence communicated everything. We developed our distinctive rhythm, healing together. Then there was Eleanor, my mother-in-law. From our first meeting, Eleanor disapproved of me. She considered me insufficiently refined, from an inappropriate background. She once informed Michael within my hearing that I was well-intentioned, but should have recognized my limitations. Michael dismissed her remarks, believing she would eventually accept me. She never did. Following his death, Eleanor inserted herself into our lives with quiet determination. Initially, I believed her actions stemmed from grief and desire to maintain connection with Theo. I welcomed her visits and included her in celebrations, school performances, and family gatherings. Yet her criticism persisted. She complained about bedtimes being too flexible, insufficient discipline, and excessive emotional nurturing. She'd display disapproval when I sang lullabies or allowed Theo to select mismatched clothing. Her silent judgment felt constant and oppressive. One afternoon, I discovered her showing Theo promotional materials for an exclusive preparatory school I'd never heard mentioned. When I explained financial constraints prevented enrollment, she responded dismissively. Certain environments benefit children more substantially. Not every parent comprehends this reality. I remained silent but established firmer boundaries, restricting visits and clarifying expectations. That's when her attitude hardened noticeably. She began scrutinizing everything: my career, financial situation, parenting approaches. After one weekend at her residence, Theo returned asking, "Mommy, would I experience greater happiness living with grandmother?" The question felt like physical violence. I realized this situation transcended support or affection. This was about domination. Eleanor wasn't merely critiquing my parenting. She sought complete control, exploiting vulnerability. 14 days later, an official envelope arrived containing legal documentation for custody proceedings. Eleanor was attempting to remove Theo from my care. When I unsealed that envelope and read "Petition for Custody," sensation drained from my hands. I collapsed onto the kitchen floor, crumpling the documents. Theo watched television nearby, utterly unaware his entire existence faced imminent upheaval. The petition detailed Eleanor's request for complete custody, not shared, not supervised, but absolute. She characterized me as emotionally unstable, financially precarious, and incapable of providing appropriate stability. Entire sections portrayed me as a grief-stricken mess unable to properly clothe my child, much less raise him effectively. Most painfully, her assertions weren't entirely baseless. Yes, grief remained present. Yes, occasionally I wept privately or neglected household tasks, but I showed up consistently for my child. I provided nourishment, affection, academic assistance, and comfort during nightmares. I represented his security. Now someone claimed that wasn't sufficient. I contacted my sister Rebecca, who arrived promptly. After examining the documentation twice, she advised, "She's employing underhanded tactics, but victory isn't inevitable." I secured a public defender, unable to afford alternatives. Though compassionate, his caseload overwhelmed him. His guidance primarily consisted of maintain composure, demonstrate respect, document everything. Hardly reassuring advice. Meanwhile, Eleanor retained a premier family attorney specializing in high-profile custody disputes. I began documenting every interaction meticulously. I collected educational records, medical notations, photographs, correspondence with teachers, anything demonstrating Theo's well-being and security. Nightly, after his bedtime, I organized evidence while background television provided distraction from spiraling thoughts. The preliminary hearing proved terrifying enough. Eleanor appeared in expensive professional attire resembling a corporate executive. She smiled at Theo upon his entrance, but her gaze remained fixed on me like a predator observing wounded prey. Her representative exuded confidence and expertly manipulated minor details into damning character flaws. Her income remains erratic, he asserted. Her professional activities barely extend beyond home-based freelancing. No extended family resides nearby for support. She exhibits anxiety symptoms and visibly continues grieving her deceased husband. While Ms. Reed possesses good intentions, we believe she lacks emotional capacity to address Theodore's long-term requirements. I wanted to protest loudly that none of these factors indicated inadequate parenting. Instead, I maintained the composed demeanor my attorney recommended. At home, Theo sensed the underlying tension. One evening after his bedtime routine, he inquired, "Will I have separate houses now?" Unable to answer truthfully, I fabricated reassurance. "No, sweetheart. Mommy's handling adult responsibilities. Everything remains secure." Privately, uncertainty haunted me. Eleanor escalated her tactics. She contacted welfare services with anonymous allegations that I left Theo unsupervised during daytime hours. A caseworker arrived unexpectedly during a client video conference. Theo constructed with building blocks at our kitchen table, still wearing pajamas. I responded comprehensively to each question, provided a home tour, and offered contact information for Theo's educators and physician. Though she departed professionally, her presence lingered ominously. That evening, behind locked doors, I surrendered to tears among unfolded laundry. That week, Theo created artwork depicting stick figures of us holding hands before our home. A speech bubble contained the message, "I love you beyond everything." I displayed it prominently on our refrigerator, contemplating it extensively. The outcome remained uncertain, but one truth resonated absolutely. Surrender wasn't an option. Not regarding my child. Not without resistance. The night preceding our final custody hearing, sleep proved elusive. I sat reviewing documentation, educator communications praising Theo's development, pediatrician notes confirming healthy growth, school artwork, even community activity flyers documenting our weekly participation. Preparation felt crucial. I needed to demonstrate that Theo flourished under my care, not merely survived. Nevertheless, doubts persisted. What if the judge perceived me through Eleanor's perspective? What if grief appeared as weakness? What if sensitivity, gentleness, and honesty somehow undermined my parental qualifications? Rebecca assisted with preparations, bringing refreshments I couldn't consume and a collection of photographs she deemed potentially useful. Theo's third birthday celebration, his first preschool day, us baking together with flower-covered faces. "You possess everything necessary," she assured me, covering my hand with hers. "Simply allow them glimpses of your authentic self." Later that evening, after her departure, I discovered Theo cross-legged on his bedroom floor, writing intently on lined paper. "What project occupies you, sweetie?" I inquired, kneeling beside him. He looked up, his expression unusually serious for someone so young. "I'm composing a letter," he explained, "for the magistrate." I paused, surprised. He nodded, adding, "Just if they don't understand how much I want to stay with you." My throat constricted painfully. "Theo, that's incredibly thoughtful, but—" "It's okay, Mommy," he interrupted reassuringly. "I won't write anything unkind about grandmother. I just want them understanding what living with you means to me." He folded the paper carefully and placed it inside his backpack. "I'll bring it just in case." I struggled with an appropriate response. Part of me wanted to discourage him, explaining this wasn't his responsibility to address. But another part, recognizing my son's intelligence, sensitivity, and emotional depth, simply nodded and embraced him tightly. The following morning dawned cold and overcast. Theo wore his favorite blue sweater with the dinosaur emblem on the sleeve. I styled his hair into the small bun he preferred and packed extra snacks precautiously. We waited silently in the courtroom's rear section. Eleanor arrived wearing designer outerwear and expensive footwear. Her attorney entered carrying a briefcase worth more than my entire wardrobe. I avoided looking their direction, focusing instead on Theo's hand clasped in mine. When summoned forward, I stood alongside my representative, inhaling deeply. Eleanor's attorney spoke first about financial stability, structured routines, and two-parent household advantages, supposedly replicated through hired caretakers and private tutors. He insinuated my household represented disorder and emotional fragility. I maintained neutral expressions, remembering Rebecca's advice. Let them witness your true nature. During my opportunity to speak, I maintained composure discussing our daily patterns, educational engagement, homework assistance, bedtime rituals. I presented evidence of Theo's developmental progress, friendships, comfort, and security. Without pleading or emotional displays, I simply presented factual information. Just as the judge prepared to conclude proceedings, Theo tugged my hand. He stood, stepped forward from our bench, and approached slowly. "Your Honor," he said, holding his folded paper. "May I read something? I wrote this for you." Complete silence descended upon the room. Even Eleanor appeared momentarily stunned by this unexpected development. The judge glanced between us before responding. Very well. Proceed. Theo unfolded his letter, smoothed it carefully against the desk, and cleared his throat. Standing there, small yet resolute, holding his paper as though it were precious, his voice remained steady. My name is Theo Reed, he began. I'm 6 years old. I enjoy dinosaurs, grilled cheese sandwiches, and spending time with my mom. I want to continue living with her. The courtroom remained absolutely motionless. The judge leaned slightly forward, hands folded beneath his chin as Theo continued reading. My mom provides hugs whenever I feel sad. She prepares special breakfast on weekends and allows me pouring syrup myself even when I create messes. She laughs at my jokes, including ones without proper punchlines. After nightmares, she welcomes me into her bed. She calls me her treasure. My throat constricted painfully. My eyes burned with unshed tears, but I refused blinking, unwilling to miss any moment of this. Theo continued, his small fingers gripping the paper tighter. Sometimes we miss my dad together and cry. Then she shares stories about him. We light candles and remember good things. She teaches me sadness is acceptable and happiness can return later. That's important. He looked directly at the judge. I know grandmother loves me, but she thinks my mom is excessively gentle. I believe gentleness represents goodness. I don't want living somewhere emotions aren't permitted. I want staying with someone who allows childhood experiences. He refolded his letter carefully and surveyed the room. Everyone remained transfixed. Even Eleanor had lowered her gaze. I thought you should understand this, he added quietly. Thank you. He returned to me, resumed his seat, and clasped my hand again. Though emotionally overwhelmed, I maintained composure. Not yet. The judge continued observing us. After prolonged silence, with tension permeating the atmosphere, he finally spoke. This court acknowledges the minor Theodore Reed statement. While typically we discourage placing children in testimonial positions, clearly these represent his authentic thoughts reflecting remarkable emotional clarity. I find them persuasive. My heart simultaneously soared and froze. Persuasive wasn't equivalent to a definitive ruling. The judge addressed Eleanor's representative. I've reviewed the petition and supporting documentation submitted by Mrs. Langston's legal team. No documented abuse exists, no medical concerns appear, and no professional testimony suggests Ms. Reed's unsuitability. This court rejects financial disparity alone as justification for separating a child from his mother, particularly when emotional well-being appears stable with evident attachment bonds. Eleanor attempted speaking, but the judge gestured for silence. Furthermore, he continued, the child has expressed genuine, articulate preference for remaining with his mother, carrying significant weight in this determination. He turned toward me, his expression softening perceptibly. Ms. Reed, this court finds you qualified to maintain full legal and physical custody of your son. Visitation arrangements with Mrs. Langston may be addressed through mediation, but the court identifies no basis for permanent custody transfer. Momentarily paralyzed, I experienced the sensation of tremendous weight lifting from my chest. My legs weakened, my hands trembled uncontrollably. Nevertheless, I pulled Theo into my embrace. He clung tightly, wrapping his arms around my neck, his characteristic gesture when seeking security. Except this occasion, I needed reassurance equally. Eleanor remained silent as we passed. She sat rigidly, jaw clenched, knuckles whitened around her handbag handles. I avoided triumphant gestures or prolonged glances. I simply continued walking, holding Theo's hand securely. Outside, sunshine had emerged, warming the air slightly. Theo squinted upward, smiling. Was my performance acceptable, Mommy? Kneeling, I kissed his forehead tenderly. You preserved our family. The following day, our home felt transformed though physically unchanged. Theo still awakened early, encouraging breakfast preparation. The furniture remained identical. Lavender candle fragrance still permeated our morning ritual. But internal transformation had occurred. Survival mode had ended. I'd fought for my child and prevailed. That morning I discovered his letter, the courtroom document, affixed to our refrigerator with a dinosaur magnet. He'd signed his name at the bottom using red crayon with a tiny heart symbol beside it. I stood reading repeatedly, line by line, until my vision blurred and sitting became necessary. He'd created this independently, not because I requested assistance, not calculating strategic advantage, but because he recognized our connection. He perceived our bond's significance and, in his childlike manner, protected it. We visited the park that afternoon, just ourselves. I permitted extended swing sessions and purchased ice cream despite approaching dinner time. Returning home, he requested calling his father's previous number, leaving messages as formerly practiced. I held the telephone while he whispered, "Daddy, the judge decided I stay with Mommy." I demonstrated courage, resembling you. Tears flowed freely then. People frequently underestimate children's comprehension. They equate youth with obliviousness. But Theo understood completely. He sensed tension, observed my stress indicators, heard whispered conversations, noticed my lingering presence beside his bed nightly. He recognized everything, yet still chose optimism, chose affection. We met with court-appointed mediation specialists later regarding Eleanor's visitation privileges. Though tense, discussions remained civil. I agreed to monthly supervised visits, not because I welcomed her presence, but because Theo maintained affection for her. I refused teaching him that love necessitates accompanying animosity. She never apologized for the custody litigation, courtroom fabrications, or attempting dismantling our established life. But these actions no longer possessed destructive potential. This experience taught significant lessons. Motherhood doesn't require perfection. It doesn't demand spacious housing, prestigious employment, or infallible wisdom. It means showing up despite exhaustion. It means prioritizing another's needs above pride, fear, and personal suffering. It means offering unrestricted love, even questioning its sufficiency. Because for them, it suffices completely. Previously, I feared sensitivity indicated weakness. That excessive emotional expression or protectiveness confirmed Eleanor's assessments. My perspective has transformed. Gentleness doesn't signal weakness. Gentleness creates safety. Gentleness demonstrates strength where truly significant. Theo helped me understand this. Occasionally, I still awakened during nighttime hours, fearing the court decision was merely imagined. I tiptoed down the hallway, observe him sleeping peacefully, limbs entangled among blankets, mouth slightly open, embracing his plush tiger as though it contains universal secrets. That's when relief arrives. We're secure, beyond merely secure. We're complete. If you're raising children or have defended someone beloved, these emotions feel familiar. You recognize powerlessness panic and its internal fire. You understand being underestimated, dismissed, declared insufficient. But hopefully you also recognize that your love matters significantly, even expressed quietly, even when questioned. And if nobody has mentioned this today, you're performing better than you realize. If this narrative touched you, if it evoked memories of someone treasured or something defended, please consider indicating approval. Your response matters tremendously. Share with someone possibly needing encouragement today, perhaps navigating custody disputes or maintaining family cohesion daily. Please comment below about your experiences. Have others suggested your inadequacy? How did you respond? How did you overcome? Finally, if you desire additional authentic, impactful stories about resilience, devotion, and transformative moments, subscribe to this channel. Activate notifications to receive future content immediately. Thank you for witnessing, listening, understanding, connecting heart to heart.